What's going on, Bottom Line viewers? It's me, Fitty Trent, joined by the great, the grand, the amazing, we all know him, love him, AC. How's it going, buddy?
It's going great. It's going great. It was the few times when I've done a hockey recap that the game was actually somewhat entertaining. I won't go all the way, but some of the games that we've watched before and recapped, as you know, haven't been that exciting. So this was kind of a bonus.
It was kind of a bonus, and the game that we're hinting at is the Boston Bruins and Ottawa Senators game. Yes, check your clocks right now. I mean, this is like the earliest we've ever had a recap. Basically, immediately after the game happened, we were just on the ball, super excited because it was such an interesting game, and there was so much on the line. I mean, you look from the Senators' point of view, they can clinch a playoff spot, and that is absolutely great for them if they can clinch that playoff spot, because they've had a rough time of it at times throughout this year. Boston, I mean, if they get these 2 points, then they have a big leap and bound over the Ottawa Senators for that second place team in the Atlantic Division. So big 2 points on the line, and we definitely saw both these teams play to the best of their abilities, at least at one point or another in this game.
Yeah. I think the big key thing was they played at their best at different times. So it was hard to say head-to-head if they're playing their best hockey, what would happen. I think it more than not, they're going to play against each other in the playoffs because as we speak, Toronto's down 3-1. That's going to bump them two points below Boston. Or actually, they'll still be tied with Boston. But still, if this is a playoff series, this is definitely a series that could go 7 games for sure.
No, absolutely, because both these teams, we've seen them compete well, as you said, at different times during this game. And at different times, they both looked like they were going to take control of this game. I mean, first half of the game, I thought that the Bruins had most of the control. I really did not see anything from the Senators. I don't even remember the Senators having 9 shots in the first period. Apparently it happened, but I don't remember that. And then for the second half of the game, the exact opposite of the coin. When were the Boston Bruins even having a chance on Craig Anderson? It looked like it was all Ottawa Senators all the time.
Yeah, I don't know if it's official. The third period, Boston only had 3 shots. So you could say that they kind of gave up. Not gave up, but they weren't playing like it was for anything in the second half of that game. Good for Ottawa. They came to play. The things that really pointed out to me was Boston, if that's how they play that first period, how they played, they got 15 shots. Kudos to Craig Anderson. Played a great game. They got 15 shots, and they were playing quite physical too, kind of Boston Bruins style. We'll talk later about the whole Marchand thing because he just pretty much killed his team the last couple games of the season. The line with Marchand, Backus, and Bergeron normally is a great line. They add the young kid Vetrano on there. It just wasn't the same. They had some chances in the first period, but then pretty much that line was invisible the rest of the game. I didn't even see them. I think the coach kind of maybe they thought that it wasn't. I think this game wasn't as big for Boston because they already made the playoffs as it was for the Senators.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. As you perfectly said, I mean, the Senators had a lot more to gain. The Boston Bruins, they were a little bit more comfortable with this game. But yeah, nevertheless, don't you want to have that home ice advantage, especially when you're Boston and you have such passionate fans and you filled them with such disappointment the past couple of years by barely missing the playoffs? Don't you want to fill them with hope with getting at least a little bit more of home ice advantage?
Well, like there you go. I don't know if it was an injury, but Backus normally plays with Bergeron. Bergeron played a lot in penalty kill as well as overtime, which bumped his minutes up to 19. Backus only played 12 minutes, and normally that's kind of your number one line with Marchand. That Krejci line with Pasternak and Stafford. I thought Stafford was a good addition. They got him pretty much for nothing from Winnipeg. I think he's a guy going into the playoffs could help you out. As the line that impressed me for Ottawa was a line that's just been put together the last 8 months, starting with trading Zibanejad for Brassard. That just happened in the offseason, the NHL draft. Obviously getting Sahlberg in February, and then Burrows at the trade deadline. They actually played quite well. They got the goal too. But it's funny as just a hockey fan following these 3 guys so throughout their different careers, their different career paths, And all of a sudden, it's kind of like it's so random. That line's so random to me. But as a hockey fan, I like it because it's, been put together in the last, month?
Yeah, it's been put together in the last couple months, and it's the kind of thing where, as you said, they're playing very well together. And I like how you kind of hinted a little bit at maybe Backus was injured, because there were a couple injuries in this game. We saw Torey Krug go down in the first period and not return, so maybe that had a big deal with the Boston Bruins. Krug usually puts up at least 19 minutes a game. He's a good top 4 defenseman, at least, night in and night out, so that probably had something to do with it. And going back to that line that did really well with Ottawa, Sahlberg went down with an injury, and he looked like he might be out for the entire game in the third period when he went face first into the glass, and they had to go check him if he had concussion or anything like that. Luckily, he was okay, returned for overtime. We didn't really see him take any more hits or give any more hits, just as a precaution, but nevertheless, it was good to see him come back out there because Sahlberg, as we said, he's playing well with the Ottawa Senators, so they need him for a deep playoff run if that's what their aim is.
Yeah, and with Ottawa injuries too, talking about the guys that didn't play, Bobby Ryan, and also Carlson, because that power play, I think they had 3 power, or maybe just 2. But even if it was just 2, I'm pretty sure they only had the puck in the Bruins zone for about 30 seconds. The second power play is a bit better, but you just see the loss of Carlson, and you could see it in overtime because Carlson is out there for 5 minutes. Right, and I think that was a big key for them that they'll need to have back for sure. And then getting back to the Marchand, what an idiotic, stupid play in a game that somewhat meant something for Tampa Bay. For them, it did because it made them make the playoffs, but just a stupid retaliation, and you take yourself out for 2 games in a season where you're a goal scorer. You still play with that chippiness. But to do something like that and cost your team down the stretch, luckily they won that game. But say if they didn't win that game, all of a sudden they're not with Marchand. But looking at this game, he's a guy that definitely Boston missed. But I don't know if they missed anyone because it just didn't seem in the second half of that game. It didn't even seem like they were even trying. Ottawa was all over them. And I'll give credit to both goalies. First with Rask, because I thought Rask held them in that third period, made some big saves. And then Craig Anderson in that first period. And I think there was one chance in the third, really played well. The Pastrnak breakaway he saved. So a great goaltenders duel as well. And in the playoffs, both these goaltenders could get hot and carry their teams if their teams aren't playing well.
No, for sure. Do you think that the goaltenders were the 2 best players for their respective teams?
Yeah, I would definitely say that they were the best players. I didn't really see that much of anyone really that really stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the way Chara is playing. In our group text, we were going back and forth because the last 2 years without them making the playoffs, he's kind of been going on a downturn, just not the same Chara, which is tough to do at his age and the way he plays. And everyone's just getting so much quicker. He's getting a bit slower. But I do like the way he played in that first period, second period, and he didn't really give up. He had the over the boards delay of game penalty. But other than that, he's still very solid. I think he's definitely wasn't the problem in that game. And effort-wise, he's a guy that stood out on a period-to-period basis.
No, for sure. I think Chara, all said and done, he did have an okay game. He did have 4 penalty minutes, which that's rare for Chara. I mean, that's going to happen every once in a while. But he's not a penalty kind of guy. We also saw him kind of get a little bit more physical than Chara usually gets. I mean, he's a big body, yes, but he doesn't really try to use it to intimidate like the small guys at the end of the whistle. But we saw him do that a little bit more now. So I think he's kind of telling that he needs to do this if the Boston Bruins want to make it to the next stop with the playoffs. For a player that kind of disappointed me in this game, not so much, in the shootout because he did score, but just throughout the entire game, for the Ottawa Senators, Kyle Turris really did not show up that much for me. 2 shots on goal as, your top line. He did okay in the faceoff dot, with 21% faceoff percentage. I'm just kidding. That's not okay. That's awful for your first faceoff, man. Granted, that's against Patrice Bergeron, but he also had 4 giveaways, and I think he did lead the giveaway to Drew Stafford to end up getting that goal. So it's the kind of thing where, he didn't have an amazing game, but that's just because maybe he's not playing with the most amazing players right now because, Bobby Ryan and those kind of players are out right now. So it'll be interesting to see what happens later down the road.
And just looking at the box score, it couldn't just be injuries, because a guy like Matt Bolesky, who I thought, if we're talking about good players that stood out to me, Bolesky in that first period really stood out, and then he just didn't notice him. But obviously, he only played 9 minutes. So I think the coach, there might have been some sort of rest factor going on midway through that second period, because you have Backes with 12 minutes, Bolesky with 10. You know, Backes is normally 17, 18. Bolesky can get up there as well, but normally an average of 15. So it'll be interesting to see when everything settles if these guys are injured, or this game was more about the coach trying to save some of his players, because they only have 1 game left, right? So we'll see. It was kind of bizarre to see that.
No, for sure. I mean, I completely agree. Bolesky kind of has down spiraled since last year. Last year, he was a really, really good player. This year, he's been really disappointing, I find, with the Boston Bruins, you know, not really getting it done. But it will be interesting to see. I kind of can see them kind of setting their players. A lot of teams do that when the playoffs get really close, to start setting a lot of their players. But, I mean, both these teams have officially clinched the playoffs. But I know a lot of people will be upset with our game review choice, or my game review choice, because I was the one that chose it. So I'm sorry, bottom line viewers, because one of the bigger games is happening right now, Tampa Bay versus Toronto. Toronto's losing that game. We're just going to touch on it a little bit. If you're Toronto, are you worried at all that you are losing this game to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Tampa Bay is that close to catching up?
I'm not too worried. I think it's with this loss, they'll still have a chance to jump Boston, though, because I think this was their 3rd last game, and Boston only has 1 now. And if I'm not mistaken, they have the same points, or Toronto has 1 less point. Is that?
I think you're right about that. Yeah, I think
so.
You're correct.
So Toronto, even if they lose this, they have 2 games left, and pretty much Tampa Bay needs to win their 2 games left, and they need Toronto to lose not just this one, but 2 more. So Toronto's still in a good position, but if they do lose this one, before they were in a good position to play Ottawa, or whoever pretty much won this game, maybe. So now it's looking at, now you're going to Washington, maybe the best team in the league right now, a team that's played well from beginning to end. That's tough. But if you're a young team, obviously all the Toronto fans will be like, oh, even if we got swept, that was so good for those young guys. We held in against the best team. So it's not the end of the world. I think it makes things interesting for us, because we were trying to think on Saturday if games were going to mean anything. And now they might, with Toronto losing this game. If they do, 3-1, I think 10 minutes left.
I'm glad that you hinted a little bit about, you know, the what ifs by the looks of it, you know, the Maple Leafs versus the Capitals, because we got one of our #1 hockey fans in the chat right now, Wildfire. He says hey to us. We say hey back. He bared through the entire 2-hour video that Mitch and I did for the trading block, for the trade deadline. He bared throughout the entire thing with us, talking with us the entire time, so I greatly appreciate you talking to us back right now. He says that he hopes that the Caps face the Leafs in the playoffs. I think that would be a very interesting series, as we kind of hinted on. Either way, it's going to be a good series for the Leafs, because for me, we got this new guy in the chat. I'm just going to call him out right now. I think I've seen this guy before, but I don't know. His name is Mitchell Milani. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but he says the guy who created this channel is a genius. And I don't know. I'll be sure to pass that on to Mitch. I mean, thank you, Mitchell Milani. Yeah. You know, that's also his last name, so maybe there's some resemblance there, but I don't know. But we'll pass it on to him.
M squared. Yeah. The man.
There you go, the GOAT. So thank you very much for joining us with this live recap. We're going to have maybe 1 or 2 more before the season ends. We're definitely going to do some more once the playoffs start again. We're going to be doing some of our #1 playoff teams. I know AC is going to be joining us for that. We also got our playoff prediction video coming up less than a week. We also got more NBA, NFL, WrestleMania. And yeah, Dylan, Kev, and Mitch, they're all coming back from WrestleMania within the next couple days. So that means that our content is going to be even that much better, that many more videos. So it'll be great. If you're not subscribed to the Bottom Line View already, you should do it right now, because we're almost at 2,400 subscribers. And I remember when Mitch and I were talking, and he said, I'm almost hitting 800 subscribers. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Keep it up. So we are getting better and better every single day. So be sure to subscribe, be sure to like, and be sure to comment. All right, this is Fitty Trent and AC signing off. Thank you very much for watching this video, and peace out.